Hello friends, Hank Smith here of Hank Patty in the Current with another action-packed Deering instructional video. In our last lesson we learned how to form the major, minor, and seventh chords in 3 positions. Today we're going to expand on that a little bit and learn about chord extensions. Sometimes you're looking at a piece of music and you encounter a chord that has all these number and letter combinations after it. And you might think, geez, I have no idea what to do with that. How do I form that chord? I don't even know what it is. And so what we're going to do is take a step-by-step approach to forming these chord extensions so that you can make better informed decisions about what you're doing in composition if you're composing, or if you're reading a chart. Say, for example, you want to learn a jazz tune and it has some of these bigger chord extensions on it and you're not entirely sure how to use it or how to even form the chord. We're just going to learn in this video how to form the chord. In later videos, we'll learn about how some of these chords work and things like that. There are a lot of them, and we just don't have the time to get too far down that rabbit hole. But what we can do for now is get you to figure out how to play these chords, how to form them, and then figure out which position you'd want to play them in to make it easier to get to the next chord. So the trick to doing this is a step-by-step approach. Let's say you encounter a chord that says G minor 7 flat 5. You have no idea. G minor 7 flat 5. Well, it says G. I know what a G is. That's right. So we're going to use this G, or root position G, that we used in the last lesson. And we're just going to go through it one thing at a time and make that chord at the end of it. So G minor 7 flat 5 is what we said. Here's G. Now we know that if you want to make it G minor, which is the next thing, you have to flat the third here. This is 1, 3, and 5. So 3 has to come back 1 to make it G minor. We also learned that to form the 7th chord in the last lesson, you take your pinky off and flat your index finger against these two to form G7. All right, so G minor 7 is a combination of those two things. So here's G, G minor, G minor 7. And so I'm barring the bottom 3 strings here at the 3rd fret and then leaving my root note, my G, in place with my ring finger. G minor 7. All right, so G minor 7 flat 5. Well, we know the D is the 5. So that has to come back a half step. So what we're going to do is stack the chord up like this. So we still have these two, but we need this one. So we're going to add that like this, but then you get your pinky out here to keep the root note in play. And so that's one way you can play this chord. Another way you could play it without stretching is to just play the open G first. Otherwise, you're playing a B flat minor in the top end without the bass. So we want to make sure that the bass note, the G, is in there so that it is identifiable as a G chord and not a B flat minor or some other chord. So here's one way to play it with all 4 fingers on, which is kind of unwieldy because that's tough. So let's think of another way we can do this. Well, we know that we can play the chord here. There's G, G major, just as we did last time. And then we rearranged our fingers to make G minor. So now we know G minor, this one has a 7 in it. All right, well, so the 7 is here at the 10th fret middle string, or more closely here at the 6th fret 2nd string. So if we're at G minor and we want a G minor 7, then that one has to come back so that it's going to resemble B flat chord. So now that's kind of tough. How do we reconcile that? Because now our lowest note isn't G anymore, it's a B flat. So we have to change that. We have to see if we can play it as a G minor 7 chord, which is going to, again, play the G as your first note. There's a G minor 7. So you could play the chord with the open 3rd string first and then play the other notes in the chord, or we can incorporate it here. G minor 7, So it looks like a B flat triad here with a G in the bass. In this case, again, we're keeping this is a G chord. We're identifying this as a G chord. Here's the root note, it is G. Now we still have to flat the 5. So this is G minor 7, now we need to flat the 5. Our 5 chord, or our 5 note is here now. That has to come back a half step. So now we're left with this chord. So there's your G minor 7 flat 5 here. Which is a little unwieldy still because we have this pinky extension. So what happens if we flip it around? In other words, what happens if we put this note in the bottom and the G in the top? That's one way to do it. But we're trying to keep, for the interest of this lesson, we're trying to keep the root in the bottom. So if you're not feeling that, if your pinky is just too hard, I just don't know. I don't know if I can do that. Well, let's see what it looks like up here. So here we go with G, right? And then we make G minor. Then we make a G minor 7. We have to have the G in there in the root. So this is our first note. And then we have to flat the 5. So again, it's going to look like a B flat minor chord unless we have our G in the bass. For our purposes here, we're not going to get into why or the function of the chord at all. We just want to learn how to form it using one step at a time. So G minor, G minor 7, G minor 7 flat 5. So what happens if we have a chord where it takes something away, like we did that, G minor 7 flat 5, so it has two things that are taken away. In other words, in order for it to become a G minor, you have to flat the 3rd, so that's one thing that's removed. And then you have to flat the 5. So there's two things that went down instead of coming up. So what happens if you have a chord that has a flat note in it, say a 7, flat 7, and a sharp 5? So we'll go with G, flat 7, sharp 5. Now, take our G chord. We already know how to flat the 7, like that. But now we need to add 5. So here's our 5 again, the D. And we scoot that up to add 5. So it goes from a D note to an E flat or D sharp. So we make the 7. So G, flat 7, add 5. Oops, that's wrong. There we go. So basically what we did is we took our G, we flatted the 7 as if to make a G7, and then we added 5, sharp 5. So we recondition our fingers to do this, and that ends up being a very attainable chord. It's not too stretchy, you're not going out here. It's a very nice chord. Kind of dreamy, sing-songy chord, very nice in jazz and stuff like that. And so all we did, like I said, we took it one step at a time. G, flat 7, sharp 5. And so with that logic, you can build chords in your 3 positions by adding or taking away a note. You either go up or you come down. And there are many, many chord extensions to explore. There are a lot of common ones that you'll encounter more often than not. But there are some other ones that are pretty specific to tunes, and the reason that they're like that, again, without getting too far into the hows and whys and the function of them, is because it's related to what happens before or after it and what the melody is doing and where the bass is. So there's a lot of factors that can lead to that G minor 7 flat 5 chord. And again, the important thing is not to get overwhelmed with all of that stuff yet. We will explore in a later lesson the functionality of these chords and why they are what they are and why they show up when they do. But for now, if you're looking at a piece of music and you just want to know how to play the chord, take it one step at a time. Start with the root note, G, root chord. Minor, make it a minor, G minor. Make it a minor 7. Make it a G minor 7 flat 5. And in doing that, you'll find that it's a lot easier and less overwhelming and less intimidating if you can just take it one bit at a time. So have a good time, learn some new tunes, and we will check back with you later and see what we can do with them.